you're really looking at the Sitka like Blizzard lineup, or the Kuiu Burner lineup.
Yeah,
like is they don't have enough like fill weight in the hood.
The brands have strengths and weaknesses. Find what works for you.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Built to Hunt podcast, brought to you by the team of hunt advisors at the Huntin' Fool magazine, where we are dedicated to helping our members go on more hunts with better information. Join Huntin' Fool today at huntinfool.com.
Welcome back to the Built to Hunt podcast. Today we are talking taboo, which is mixing different camos and mixing different hunting brands. So sitting down with some of the members of the Gearful team to discuss if we're mixing and matching across various brands, what pieces are we going to select from each brand like Stone Glacier, Sitka, Kuiu, Kryptek, and the like. So first, Brady, you put together a setup that came in around, $1,100?
Yeah.
You were going a little bit more budget conscious, if I remember right. I gave myself the challenge of trying to do a different brand for every piece of clothing, imagining that I'm going out looking like I just went to the Goodwill and got everything.
Thrift store shopping.
Got everything I could. Although I'm picking the best of the best, so none of these things would end up at Goodwill. I'm picking the best from every brand to outfit myself, but I gave myself that challenge of not doubling up on any different camos. And then, Forrest, what kind of approach did you take to this?
I didn't fall in line with you guys as far as making a budgeted list, but I will speak to the strengths and weaknesses of given categories of clothing with various brands where you might want to look to one brand over another, or, instances such as that. So,
sure.
Sweet.
I feel like a big point of this podcast, too, is to show that like the pants that I chose are very different than the pants that you chose, and the pants I chose would not fit you very well.
No.
So it's keep in mind that fit is a huge part of how well a piece of gear functions for you.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I would say that the fit is going to be more important than the camo pattern.
I would agree.
Especially when it comes down to, especially with pants. Mm-hmm. I look at those and I don't think that having your pants matching your top is as important as having pants that are going to be durable and comfortable while you're using them in the field. And I had a hard time with that. I'm very OCD, organized. I wanted all of my, when I initially started, the first piece of gear I got was that Kuiu in the Vias pattern. Mm-hmm. So I wanted Vias everything. I wanted to look like a poster for that thing. And dude, the pants did not fit me, and I just thought hunting pants were uncomfortable. And again, I'm not knocking. I know Kuiu pants fit for some folk.
Yep.
For short, stocky, 5'7", 190 pounds Jake Lyle, that was not. It was not the right fit, and I thought hunting pants were uncomfortable for like 2 years, and then I finally got started trying Kryptek, Sitka, Stone Glacier Kings, and if I were going to pick the thing that the animal is going to pick out, if it doesn't have camo on it, I would rather paint my face in camo before I have pants that are not in a solid color and camoed up.
Yeah, like the point there is that camo, and it's, a conversation that a lot of people have had, but camo is not as important as a good fitting piece of clothing.
Yeah.
Unless you're oriented around the photo, right?
Unless you're looking for that photo op.
But if you're oriented around the journey at hand prior, over the photo, then yeah, functionality for sure.
Yeah.
Keep it simple.
You want to start with pants then?
Yeah. So if we are trying to pick out just the best, or if I'm picking out the best, I'm looking at it was a toss up for a short, stocky guy. I'm torn between Kings and Stone Glacier. Those are two pants that I found to fit really well. Something I like about the Kings line, I actually really like their XKG pattern. I think it was needed. The XK7 pattern, excuse me. But their XKG line is a little bit more tailored to an athletic fit, which has kind of been the trend in hunting clothing recently. But got a little too athletic for there. We had different definitions of athletic, myself and Kuyu. I'm not running athletic. I'm lifting athletic. And so the King's Camo, it's tailored for an athletic fit, but it leaves a little bit more room in the thigh. I would go with the King's Camo XKG draft pant. Again, only because I'm going to use Stone Glacier later. I love my Stone pants. We talked about it a while ago, but it has the adjustable waistband. I found it to be really easy to get a good fit with the Stone Glacier pants. But again, I pick a different Stone Glacier piece later, so I'd go with the King's Camo XKG draft pant so that you still get the hip zips on the sides. And just another thing to mention, King's Camo also has the Hunter lineup, which is a not athletic fit. So if those pants are too tight, they also have a lineup that's built in a more traditional boxy style. So I like that King's Camo gives you those two options.
Yeah, definitely.
No, I think there's a difference between brands and what they consider to be an athletic or an articulated fit.
Mm-hmm.
For me, excuse me, an over-articulated knee to the point where if you hold the pant up, there's a noticeable bend at the knee.
Yeah,
is probably not going to lend itself as well to say everyday use as it would be some other options out there. But I don't know, that fit that can function both on the mountain, whether it's with tag in hand or just out for an afternoon of fishing with the family, or here in town. That's important to me because clothing today is expensive. I want to wear it as often as I can. So.
Which, to that point, what did you go with for the pants? I'm assuming
my
ones you're wearing?
Yeah, my absolute favorite. It's just another Tuesday here in the office, just after, I guess it's late December now, but the de Havilland Lights. Love these pants. I'm going to go on the record as saying I was probably the first in the office to start wearing them.
Trendsetter.
Trendsetter for sure. Yeah, I dig them. Wear them all the time. I mean, I've said good things about them for over a year now, and I think I've pretty much played that out, but for good reason. They're good pants.
And how tall are you?
5'9", 165, pretty much average Joe, or maybe slightly shorter than average, I guess, right? where I fall on the spectrum. But I'm pretty much medium across the board for tops and bottoms. Not too swole. So.
And then I ended up going with the so I actually tried this pant on last December, and I've worn them a couple times since, and I have been surprisingly impressed, and it's the Kryptek Alios pant. For me, I'm 6'1", 170 pounds, tall and skinny, and that pant fits really nicely around the thigh, around the knee. I feel like their cut around the knee especially was tight enough to where they weren't swishing on themselves, and that's a big one for me with smaller legs. I'll have pants that'll, just swish all day long if they're a more boxy fit. So I really loved the Alios pant. It seems to breathe well. It's got the side zips. It blocks the wind pretty well too, and it's held up great so far. So in terms, it's also coming in around $160, which, that's not cheap, but it's not a $300 pair of pants.
Oh yeah, there's a huge difference between $160 and $300.
Right, and so that's probably my favorite pair. Like if I could wear a pair of pants for any season, that's probably my favorite pair of pants right now.
They make those in solids too?
They don't.
Okay.
No, I think they're going to come out with solids. Kryptek's lineup has always been kind of a little here or there, a little sprinkle of this, sprinkle of that, but I think they're going to get some solids in that pant, which would be great because, like we're talking about, it's really nice to be able to mix companies based on what fits you the best, but it does kind of suck to have different camo patterns for bottoms and tops.
Yeah, if you I would probably chuckle if I saw you on the mountain wear Kuiu Vias with Kryptek Highlander, for example. You know, I mean that does play into a normal thought process to some extent, but that's the beauty of Hunt Solids.
Yeah,
which is the direction that the industry is going in, and for good reason. Mm-hmm. Technical clothing, like I said, is so expensive. Why not wear it as often throughout the year as you possibly can? So
100%.
No, that's a good mention too, because like you don't want to put yourself in a position or get yourself in a mindset where you feel like, well, I need to have, if I'm hunting below tree line, I need Sitka's subalpine. But then if I'm in open country, I need open country. And then if I'm in a tree stand, I need, what's their tree stand one again?
I don't remember.
Elevated.
Elevated 2.
Yeah.
No, I like the versatility of the solids for sure. And good mention on the $160. The King's Camo Giraffe pant come in at about $160. The Stone Glacier de Havilland Lights $175.
Yeah, 175, 179, something like that.
Yeah,
Not bad.
so I mean, really, I think that's a good litmus for if you're looking for a good hunting pant. That's probably about what you're gonna pay.
Which is a bummer, right?
Yeah.
Like, feel like $100 and I look at a pair of pants, I'm like, dang. But, in today's market, these are very high-end technical hunting pants. It's going to cost that much.
Right, and you really need 3. If you get solids, you really need 3 pairs of pants. You need early season, mid season, late season.
Ideally, yeah.
Or you can do early season, late season, and use maybe some merino bottoms to kind of bridge the gap between the two.
Yeah, there's bridges that can be built. I think that early, mid, and late season mentality is specific to the blessed few.
Yeah.
A lot of people, I mean, they're looking at 1 to 2 weeks max out of the year that they can do a
True.
dedicated hunt, and so perhaps for their use application, they could just lean towards 1 pair of pants and then throw on a base layer beneath it if they had to. Should the weather turn cold, but it's just dependent upon the individual.
I think that's a good point, though, is a lot of the information out there on YouTube, on podcasts, is all guys in the industry like us, but people that have the opportunity to hunt a lot of the year, right? They're going on at least 3 different hunts in a year. Most consumers, they're not, hitting that same level of time in the outdoors. So
No, not by any means. A lot of them are weekend warriors. I mean, I was there myself too.
Right.
Or they just don't get the time. Or if they get 2 weeks out of the year, you got to allocate 1 week to the family, and for good reason. Then you got a week for yourself. And
right.
what tag did you get?
Yeah.
And the tags are dependent upon the season, so that could affect what pair of pants you're going to get too. So.
No, that's true. And if you're in that position, I know a lot of guys end up hunting the same place, same season, same species over time. Because again, if you have 1 week off, it's hard to spend 1 week being Lewis and Clark and not seeing anything. And then, if you find something that works, or there's a certain point where you invest so much time in one species and location, that a lot of guys hit that place up year over year for that same general period of time. And so then it makes sense, if that's you, to buy the gear that is best for that specific use case.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So let's talk tops.
Yeah.
Brady, what did you do for a top?
I feel like a bunch of women sitting around the table.
Yeah, when he says top, he means blouse.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, right. So for a base layer, I went with the Sitka Core Merino 120. For a mid layer, I went with the heavyweight hoodie, actually, just because I was trying to keep budget in the mindset. On top of that, the Kuiu Kenai vest is still an absolute favorite piece of mine. So I'm going to talk about those 3 in combination real quick, because there are a lot of great options that all come in a similar price point. I love that thin new merino from Sitka. I think it's fantastic. It might not be the most durable, especially if you're wearing it as an outer layer, because it's merino and because it's thin. So if you're looking for a piece that's going to last you a little longer, maybe go with the polyester, the lightweight hoodie. We could talk about that argument for days. But for me, that Core Merino 120 is in a decent price point, and I love the way it performs. So I went with that as a base layer. Mid layer is always where it gets a little sticky. I went with the heavyweight hoodie because you're talking like $100 less than the Ambient. But the Ambient's probably one of my favorite pieces of all time. So that's another hard decision.
Yeah.
I do find that I like wearing my mid layer as an outer layer when I'm hiking in colder temps, especially if it's humid out, and that cold will cut through your gear a lot quicker.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just wear a windbreaker when you're on the coast, right? So I like having that, like a grid fleece or the Ambient or some sort of mid layer that's going to hold up, hopefully, when I'm walking through brush and stuff. That's just the way I use it. So, dealer's choice there. And then the Kenai vest, I know this a couple other companies coming out with some vests finally. I'm a big proponent of the vest.
I can tell.
So I really like the Kenai, though, because it does breathe well. It's the right weight for me. I can wear it underneath the pack when it's colder out, and it still allows like ventilation in my armpits and my sides a little bit without being too much material to pack either. So
Yeah, if I could get the opposite of a vest, like just sleeves.
just the arms.
That would be ideal for me. My core body temp runs so hot. Like
Yeah.
the vest for me ends up being too much most of the time.
Huh.
But I like it for everyday wear. I think
Sure.
a vest looks good. So we'll just buy Kenai jackets and shave the sleeves off.
Oh,
I'll
and we can
wear-
trade.
Yeah, and I'll wear
Nice.
the arms.
I like it.
I think also a good mention there, you went with heavyweight hoodie, and you mentioned that you were torn with the ambient. I feel like that answer would probably change for you if we were talking like a December muzzleloader mule deer hunt in Montana.
It would.
You know,
Yeah.
probably switch that heavyweight out for the ambient so that
Mhm.
you get that added insulation layer. And Kenai jacket is a good jacket.
They
It's a quality jacket.
nailed it there.
You like the Kenai over the Cirque Light by Stone? I mean, they're both a thin synthetic insulation, if I'm not wrong.
You're not, but the breathability of the Kenai. Although I will say the new Kenai, their new fabric, it pills up, and it like the durability of it is not there like it used to be on the old Kenai.
Yeah.
But over the Cirque Light and any other synthetic mid layer, I'll call it, right?
Mhm.
Like that kind of hybrid area. They don't have the same kind of breathability. They're not quite as light, not quite as breathable as the Kenai, in my opinion.
Hmm.
I haven't used the Cirque Light a ton, but I think that, yeah, for me, I've definitely put the Kenai vest through the paces, and
Gotcha.
that's a staple.
Gotcha.
And I would disagree with you.
Yeah?
I think the Cirque Light's more, but again, for me, why the Cirque Light's more breathable is the cut is better on my body type.
Oh.
The Kenai jacket, I believe I have a medium of both, and I typically run large
Mm-hmm.
for uppers. So the reason I have a medium is it was a hand-me-down. But
Shake.
well, I'm being honest, man. I take what I can get. But so take that into consideration. Obviously, I would go with a large with the Kuiu, whereas the Cirque Light, I actually found that the large was a little bit too long, so I went with I sized down, and I believe Jared did too. He typically would be an XL and size down to a large.
Gotcha.
I typically would be a large, size down to a medium. So keep that in mind for the Cirque Light.
That's kind of Kuyu's mantra, though, is you should size up a size from most other brands,
No, that's a good point.
right? Like,
Yeah. But I like the microgrid fleece backing on the
Mhm.
Cirque Light and on the sides underneath the armpits. I really like that design as for breathability, but I also have spent a lot more time in the Cirque Light than I have in the Kenai, so we're the inverse of one another on that
Right,
one.
right.
So
and it might be, sixes. Like,
right. No, and that is what I chose in place of the Kenai. I chose the Stone Glacier Cirque Light. I also chose the Core Merino 120. Same reasons you chose it.
Yeah.
I would only add there that I do predominantly archery hunting, and so that's one piece that I do have not in a solid. I'll do subalpine for the camo pattern there for like archery elk. We usually run a solid colored pant.
right.
But I like the integrated face mask too, because more and more I think animals are looking me in the face. Like I don't think they're checking out the camo pattern on my legs. I think they're staring me in the eyes.
It's
So
in the eyes, man, for sure.
like I don't like it. So if I can get my top when I'm hunting, if I can get that camoed up, I feel good about that. If I can get a face mask on right before a stalk, I'm about that. But otherwise, that's really the only piece that I'm like, I want to make sure that my base layer is camo.
Yeah.
In case I drop, because usually I dropped my Cirque Light this year, dropped my pack, put on the face mask on the hood, and then made my stock on that elk I killed this year.
Interesting. Well, I guess it's my turn. Tops, it's all about functionality, fit, performance, add whatever word there you want. But for me, if it's a base layer, if I'm going to wear a merino based on use application, I'm going to go with the Core Merinos, the 120 specifically from Sitka with the armor spun technology.
So we're all
dig
three
it.
on board with that.
Mm-hmm.
We are, but
Dang.
we're gonna defer here, and here we go. If I'm gonna wear a synthetic base layer, I'm gonna go with a stone. Reason being is that hood, the built-in face mask rather of the Core Lightweight hoodie. Man, I cannot get down with that. It just bugs me to no end.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I can
and
see
I'm
that.
a bit of an anomaly there. I've heard a lot of people say that they like having that option, you know. But I like the fit and feel of that stone, the Avro synthetic hoodie.
Mhm.
I prefer it. Now, when you get up to the midweights, the mid layers rather, I'm gonna go with the Sitka Heavyweight hoodie, and reason being is it fits me more freely than does the comparable Stone Glacier Helio,
Sure.
which sometimes I have difficulty putting that on over a base layer that is a merino.
Right.
A little bit of static. I got to kind of align the seams after it's fully on, and the hood. I know, Brady, it bugs you. You
my
do
favorite.
not. You do not like the fit of the Helio hoodie hood, right?
Yeah, I'm hard on it.
Yeah, you are a bit hard on it. But the Sitka Heavyweight hoodie doesn't. It's not bad. It's good.
No, I like that one. Yeah.
And then when I step up from there, you know, it's kind of a blend between Sitka and Stone. But I will say that the beauty in not being brand specific is that if you want a product that is like a heavier down, you're probably going to be looking towards Kuiu. They've got a heavier down with that. Well, I believe it's called the Burner, if I'm not
Mhm.
mistaken. They got more fill there.
Or the
than-
Super Down Pro.
or the Super Down Pro, which I
Yep.
think is a step down from that in fill weight. And is that they're going to have certain brands are going to have more of an option in certain categories than will their competitors.
Yep.
I think it's just an opportunity for them to stand out. So if you know someone's use application is that specific and calls for it, then yeah, I mean break the mold and look to other brands. You know,
100%.
again, beauty being the solids, you can mix and match pretty freely.
Which Stone Glacier does a fantastic job at is everything is solid.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
So if you need to vary from, your Stone Glacier setup, it doesn't look bad.
No, it doesn't look bad, but again, priority being functionality. They're pretty dang good on functionality too.
Oh, absolutely. I love their stuff.
No, and that's a good mention too on the specifics of your style of hunt. Again, if you're going on a muskox hunt off of a snowmobile in February, like there really aren't a ton of great options for you from Stone or Kings. You're really looking at the Sitka like Blizzard lineup
Yeah.
or the Kuiu Burner lineup. You're really looking at those two, and then same thing once you get into waterfowl. Like probably not going to wear Stone Glacier. Stone Glacier hasn't come out with waders yet.
Well, maybe for good reason.
Yeah.
I think Sims has got it covered.
Well, that's why, and that's again why it's so good to mix brands and just take the best from each brand. Like there's a reason that Stone Glacier has nailed so many of their pieces, and we're such big fans of them, is they haven't tried to do too much, really.
Yeah. That's where they really shine, I think.
Yeah.
I will mention, in terms of a down jacket, when I'm looking at especially cross brand, the Stone Glacier Grumman is it's one of my favorites. But if I'm only getting one and I'm not worried about staying true to a brand, I'm probably going to pick up the Cryptek Aries jacket.
Same.
And
Why is that?
honestly, I don't know how they did it, but it's the most windproof down jacket that I've ever worn. And I found that a lot of the time when I'm wearing a down coat, it's because I'm glassing. When you're glassing, you're on an exposed knob, and the wind is what gets you more than the temperature most of the time. So, I don't know if it's their stitching or their face fabric. Like, I don't know what it is, but that coat just blocks the wind perfectly. And whenever I put it on, I'm just happy.
And we're talking apples to apples, right? It's not like when you were wearing a different down jacket, the winds were 10 miles per hour stronger.
No, yeah, we're talking like there's no way that, because I've worn that coat a lot. Every time I wear it, I'm like, this is more windproof than any other down coat I've worn.
Gotcha.
And I've worn a lot of them in pretty nasty conditions, and
Yeah.
that one seems to shine. I don't know why.
And that one's 850. Is the Grumman also an 850 fill?
The Grumman is an 850 plus fill, yeah.
And both have great fill weight as well. I feel like both coats hold their loft really nicely. So that really makes me believe that it is just that face fabric and the stitching and everything that just cuts the wind, and that's what gives it the edge, I guess.
Gotcha.
Well, and I think that Aries jacket is a little bit for whatever reason, it also has more separation between that face fabric and your skin, because that Grumman appears thinner, although they're comparable in fill weight with that 850 down. I think it's more packable than the Aries jacket, but for whatever reason, that little bit of additional poof, to use a technical term, because I feel that same way about my King's XKG down jacket. I found that it's comparable to the Aries jacket from Kryptek, and I love that Kryptek Aries jacket. But again, that King's jacket, although King's is kind of known for coming at a more affordable price point, that King's jacket is still over $300.
Oh, really?
Which is where a lot of your good quality 850 down products are going to land. And that Aries jacket comes in at what, $260?
$279, I believe. And I just looked it up. So the Kuiu Pro is another competitor in that space. That's pushing $400.
Yeah.
So I don't know what they did on that jacket. I don't think it's treated quite the same way. It might be a little lesser quality down, but it works.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So I said the same thing for Poofy jacket.
Poofy.
What do you have for your Poofy?
If it's climate specific, right? If it's a moist climate, it's going to warrant a synthetic kind of insulation layer.
Right.
I think it's hard to beat the Sitka Aerolite, being that the PrimaLoft Gold insulation. It does give the ability to dry out to some extent over an actual.
It's got the PrimaLoft Cross Core technology.
I thought it was PrimaLoft
Step
Gold.
above gold.
I stand corrected then.
It's super
perhaps
fancy
I'll
stuff.
verify. After.
Perhaps. Corrected, perhaps.
But if it's a kind of like standard environment, I always default to the Grumman.
Yeah.
It's just it's that just right size of a down insulating layer that'll get me through most applications at hand.
I would agree.
I mean, I just can't get away from it. Every time I put it on, I'm like, yep, this is what I need. Fits me well, keeps me warm. I'm not looking for anything else, so.
And I feel like the fit of that jacket hits it just right. It's not so big that it's, letting draft in, but you can put a bino harness under it and you don't lose your loft.
Yeah, I can just fit a Marsupio bino harness underneath my Grumman without having an oversized Grumman on me.
Right.
So I think that's a good point too there. How do you feel about that hood?
I love the hood.
On the Grumman, you dig the hood.
I love it. And again, I might have it mixed up. Fill weight or fill power. Basically, the amount of down that they stuffed in, especially in the hood, I think that's where a lot of down coats fail, is they don't have enough fill weight in the hood, so that the hood compacts when you lay your head on something, whatever. The Grumman does a great job at getting a lot of down in each channel, to where it's maintains loft unbelievably well.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. There's been quite a few nights where I've worn the Grumman in a 15-degree bag, for example.
Yep.
And it didn't affect my sleeping. Slept well, slept warm. So I can't say that all jackets would work that way, though.
Yeah. All right. Did you have another category beyond that?
I threw in I don't know. Maybe I was just going too far, but I threw in gaiters because that's something that I think a lot of people, especially when they're starting out, think, oh, I don't need to get gaiters. But
Brady loves gaiters. He wears them to Walmart just in case.
We were going out
know.
from Walmart into the woods, and it was snowy.
Dude, I actually didn't know that. I was just guessing you've worn gaiters in Walmart. You have?
Yeah.
Ha!
Wow.
I was right.
Well, I didn't have time to change. We got to go.
Gators?
I don't know, man.
It's
Anyways,
Walmart. You never know what could happen.
Gaiters are important in my opinion.
They are.
I think that's a staple item, and if I'm getting a pair of gaiters, I'm for sure going with the Stone Glacier ones just because they crushed it.
Yeah, in my mind, a gaiter is a consumable. If you're using them and using them frequently, they are going to wear out by the nature of their job at hand, right? And the pants are expensive. We've already identified that. So why not keep your pants in better condition for longer by wearing gaiters?
100%.
And to kind of add on to that is the gaiters, what they do for me is at the end of the day, when I take the gaiters off in camp, whether that's truck camp, spike camp, wherever it may be, I enjoy having clean pants as I'm rolling around on the sleeping bag before I dive in. It assists with camp cleanliness.
Yeah.
So I won't go without gaiters most of the time. So.
Yeah.
And I don't disagree with that. I don't wear them often, but I do if don't have access to a washing machine. That's a really important mention, is that it increases the longevity of your stay if you're backpacked in or even hunting out of your truck for extended periods of time. If you're camping, I like not having super muddy pants after day 1 if I'm looking at day 7, you know.
Yeah, no, it's a big factor there.
I didn't make much mention else of anything. Gloves, obviously. I forget gloves all the time. I hunt so often in early archery season, and then I just think my pack's set, and then realize that I need gloves in November.
Mm-hmm. You do.
I don't have super strong opinions on the gloves. I like a nice merino glove. I don't need a ton, just enough to keep my hands mildly warm. I usually bank on my hands being cold for 45 minutes, and then you get that weird shot of heat that pumps through them.
Yep.
Like 45 minutes into a hike, we're like, oh, I guess my hands are warm now, for no reason. I usually bank on that.
Yeah.
But I usually go for a good merino. I think a lot of people have good options. Sitka's gloves are like $49 for their merino 330. I think that's a great option.
Yeah.
KUIU has their strong fleece 220, comes in about that same price point. Kings, Stone Glacier, you name it, everybody has good glove options.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think the earlier season gloves there's not a brand that stands out in my opinion. Like you said, the Core Merino 330 by Sitka is a staple. The Grapple, I think it is, or the Grapple by Stone is a comparable product. When you get into later season gloves, I think there's beauty in the two-piece application, such as the altimeters. When you pull that down inner liner out of the waterproof shell, so say if you wanted to air out that waterproof shell and kind of dry it out overnight, you don't have to get your down so close to the stove and the teepee.
Yeah.
Or when you're doing that, you can also wear that down liner of the altimeters, in your bag if you had to. I think there's a lot of flexibility there.
I would agree. I think they nailed that 2-part glove.
And there's beauty in the fact that when they work in unison, it's not like there's a void within that limits your dexterity and such. Like it just fits like a glove. There you go.
Look at him go.
And then the other thing with gloves is when a glove is identified as being waterproof, that's not always the case, whether it's along the seam or the stitching. So how waterproof a glove is, I think, can be a factor there too. And I have yet to see, really with Sitka or Stone, trying to reflect back on times had, but yeah, all their waterproof gloves I've had good experiences with. I'm not immersing my hand in a creek by no means,
right?
But sustained like that wet snow, nothing leaking through that I can recall.
Yeah.
I feel like I'll go for anything for a glove. Like I've never been that picky about my gloves. I'll wear a pair of old mechanics gloves, and that just takes the bite off,
Which is weird because you're like one of the pickiest people in this office when it comes to gear.
This is true.
So it's always perplexed me, your approach to gloves. It's like whatever's close to you.
Well, yeah, you forget them, you lose them, keep a pair in the truck, you're good to go. But I think that's a spot where I would probably run away from spending $150, $200 on a pair of gloves and go with something cheaper. Let my hands be cold and deal with it. Put them in your pockets. I don't know.
How many times have you had broken knuckles and fingers?
Broken?
Yeah. That comes with age, right? For most people. But as you age, those fingers that you've broken in years past or those knuckles that you've busted turning a wrench, holy cow, they hurt a little sooner when it's cold the older you get. So I think that's something that's worked out for me is I do, like you had suggested, Jake, your gloves are not so paramount in your gear list, being where you are, 26, I believe, right?
Yeah.
I'll be pushing 40 here in the spring. I've noticed that I like having warm gloves when it's cold, just as an option,
A little bit of wisdom.
Yeah.
Hey, I know I'm not the only one out there, yeah. Broken knuckles, broken fingers. They hurt when it gets cold when you get older.
No, that's something I hadn't considered. My knee will do that since ACL surgery. It starts to ache when it gets cold.
A little more serious than a broken knuckle, for sure.
Well, I'm fortunate it's just the knee. I don't have it on the hands yet.
Yeah, if we're fortunate enough to live long enough, these kind of things, they come for us. So,
Any other specific mentions for if you're mixing and matching brands? I'm assuming all of us for socks we like Darn Tough.
yeah.
I think all of us wear Crispy.
Boots.
Yeah.
Yeah, Crispy and Hanwag and.
I like the Kenetrex if
Yeah,
if the use application is right,
Mm-hmm.
But I do default to Crispy more often than not.
I will say for socks, the Stone Glacier socks, not a fan.
We kind of said earlier about Stone kind of just finding their field that they specialize in.
Yeah.
Socks is one of those things perhaps that, maybe didn't get as much focus as some of the other killer products that they make.
That's what it felt like. It felt like they just
Really?
made a pair of socks, and I ordered a bunch because I was like, oh, the rest of their stuff is awesome. These will be great.
Yeah.
The whatever, I forget what it was, but they have some synthetic and some wool. It's a blend, and they smell unreal. Like I've never had a pair of socks that had the same type of odor that was just like, anyway.
You just burying your face in your socks?
Well, I'm trying to, hang them up and let them dry, and the whole tent gets
Oh.
bombed, and I'm like, hey, wait a minute. That doesn't happen with my wool ones.
That's a good point.
So, yeah, I stick with Darn Toughs.
Yeah, if I'm going, 5 to even 7 days, it's only one pair of socks for me. So if those suckers, yeah, true.
Hey, man.
Dang.
Note to self.
What are they?
Don't hunt with
One-
Forrest.
Darn tough.
Yeah.
Well, anyone who knows me knows that I don't have the best sense of smell. So
That'll get
it
you.
works in my favor. Maybe not for my buddy at hand or my wife when she's on the mountain with me, but after, I think, 20 plus years, she's sticking with me and hasn't said anything. So,
Well, and that's a good thing to consider too, is a lot of these brands have their own proprietary treatment as well for
Yeah.
be it waterproof treatment or odor treatment.
Mm-hmm.
And Polygene is pretty popular and used a lot. Max Spec is something that KUIU uses in their Peloton lineup that I found to be the best for me. That Max Spec treatment, whatever it is, I can wear that. I could wear that all week, and
it just
not
works
smell.
better for you
Mhm.
with odor mitigation.
Whereas that Polygene on a synthetic does not work for me. I can't wear that.
Hmm.
I took it off in the middle of the day this year. I had a synthetic top on from
Dang.
Kings with Polygene treatment that I just went, I can't stand the smell of myself right now, and it's 2 p.m.
Wow.
I had to take it off. Whereas the Merino blends, I found that to be really good for odor mitigation for myself. I know my dad's the opposite.
Yeah.
He actually wears a synthetic over a Merino because the synthetic makes him smell less than Merino does. So that,
He's been doing it long enough. He would know,
yeah. Well, and I've hunted enough with it that I also
That you
know this.
also know.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
The family knows.
Yeah, we're just further nailing the point that every end user is different. The brands have strengths and weaknesses. Find what works for you.
Yeah.
That's interesting that I didn't know that about your dad, actually.
Mm-hmm.
But I've found that the Merinos, the Polygene, and KUIU's treatment all work about the same for me. So I don't notice a significant difference in odor control from Merino to a treated polyester.
Really.
But the chemical difference in each person's body odor and the treatment, I don't know exactly how it works, but there's actual science that says, okay, this will work for some people, it won't work for others, like Polygene or
Yeah.
KUIU's treatment. It's know what works for you, right?
Yeah. No, I mean at a really basic level, the way the Polygene works is it's a little puzzle
Here we
piece.
go. Here we go. I was waiting for
I'm
it.
about to explain
This
it.
is some bro science.
Very simply, it's a little puzzle piece, and the Polygene fits into the Polygene fits into the places that normally your stinky scent would fit into. The Polygene fits into those places.
So that your
But if
scent
the
gets
shape-
bumped off.
If the shape of your stink is different than the Polygene, I mean, this is the best I can explain it. If the shape of your stink is different than the Polygene shape, it's not going to block your stink from filling other pockets in your clothing.
Yeah. So what the heck you say? If your puzzle is
Yeah,
if your stink puzzle is a
Your
triangle
stink
shape,
puzzle. Yeah.
don't go with a treatment that is circular shaped.
There you
There
go.
we go. Yeah. basic.
We need a real scientist here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's difficult, but at the end of the day, give yourself the upper hand and it gets some kind of treatment on your synthetics.
Yeah, absolutely. And if your treatment isn't working, if you feel like it's not performing like it should be, consider going with a synthetic that has a different treatment.
And if you're anything like Brady and you pack in a full bag of garlic on a fly into Alaska,
Maybe that's the problem.
maybe rule out the other variables too.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I think that about does it for our little roundup here with the Gearful team. Point being, key takeaway, you owe it to yourself to try different brands and try the best of different brands and find what is going to be the most comfortable fit for you, what's going to work the best for odor mitigation, and what is going to work the best for your specific use case if you're always hunting in late season conditions, early season, whatever that might be. You owe it to yourself to branch out a little bit, try some different stuff. It's what the Gearful team is here for. We want to help test those things for you. And if you have any questions about it, feel free to give us a call anytime. Drop us a line at our email. We're happy to chat gear with folks to help make these decisions. All right, until next time.